right, welcome everyone, and thank you for being patient. I know we're getting a little bit of a late start, and I just want to make a quick introduction for everyone that's on with us and anyone who will be joining us later or watching the re-recording of this. My name is Jared Casey, LMFT. I'm the Executive Director for Iron Recovery, and a grateful participant today with these amazing coaches. Just so you're aware, this is a first time for us, so there might be some glitches and errors, and we're just going to do the best we can. We're all over the age of 30. I think Chris is for sure, but I'm not totally sure. And we weren't born with a tablet or a computer in our hand, so we make mistakes, but we're trying our best. Regardless of that, grateful to have you. You've got Chris Avery, head coach, master of the AHA process, master of running every day of his life for the past how many days, weeks, months?
It's almost 860 now, days straight.
860 days.
Boom.
Bravo.
Thanks.
So we get some opportunity to hear and learn from him today. And we also got Shay the Eagle athlete. He's our energy guy. Boom. Will be emceeing mostly today. I'll also help out with some of the slides. Thank you, Shay, for dropping in with us.
You
And
got
Jean
it.
Hilton, the sweetest, kindest, helpful, healing person I know. She's an amazing holistic practitioner that helps people with nutrition and energy work and everything else in between. Thank you, Jean, for joining us.
Thank you.
So why don't you each just do a quick, brief intro, then we'll jump in. We'll start with Chris, Shay, then Jean.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for jumping on. We're grateful and appreciative of you being here, not just for you, but for the loved ones that you seek to support in a better and healthier way to help you win and then win more. So my name is Chris Avery. Quick story or long story short, I used for 17 years of my life. I've been sober for almost 8 years now. As Jared brought up, I will be running around America in 2027. So I'm training for that. That's the reason I'm running every day. I simply chose running because I hated it and I did it. I loved it so much. I did it 5 times in 20 years. So I mastered not doing it. So I figured, hey, go with something simple, something easy that you like to do. So I chose running, and I've been doing that for almost 860 days straight. And I have learned to love what it gives me and feel inspired from running more than dreading it and just dragging my butt out there every day. So I hope to give you guys a few gems that I've learned from over the 8 years of sobriety, that I've learned from working with hundreds of people in sobriety and coaching hundreds of people in sobriety. And we hope to give you some gems that you'll get some incredible information from all 4 of us to take away and implement. And that's the key. I'm all about execution and implementation, and that's what we'll give you before the end of the night. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
My name's Shay. I've been working with Jared and Chris for years now, and Jean for over a year now. And I think the biggest thing I want you to know, if you're watching this, maybe your friend shared it with you, or you're considering working with us, is that this is an attempt to connect the things that we see in the recovery space and the changes families around them want to make, and making that happen together. So we're going to put out some options for you that if you decide to put those in your life, you will be able to affect change on something that's important to you and experience the benefits or the differences, the changes, or an attempt where you're able to learn something on the other side of this. So this is a setup for hopefully a little more in-depth workshop at the end of May. But we'll make sure you walk away with a couple of practical tools or strategies and tactics that make your life better. And it's the 1, 2, 3 like combination here that we've got. You've got therapeutic. You've got the way I describe it, Jared and Chris and Jean, is with my clients a lot of, there's the who people and the what and the how. And the who people are like Jared, who's the guy who helps us understand what maybe our motivations are. And you've got people like Chris and I, we're the what people of, like, what do you need to do or stop doing to get what you want? And there's Jean, who's kind of the how. Like, the how is, how do we make sure your body, your machine, the way you experience this life is functioning properly, so all those things can actually transpire that you want. So you've got the who, the what, and the why team here, and it's a really complete team and offering. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. So thank you.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Jean, and can you hear me all right? Okay. Um, I come from a place of a lot of chronic illness in my family and my own life with pain syndromes and just a lot, too many decades of not great health that brought me to a point of trying to figure out what we can do beyond the normal, right? Beyond what we might see on YouTube or what we might hear easily. And what I've learned is that we can change whatever hand we're dealt, and that we are so ultimately powerful because we have so many modalities available to us now, from coaching to yoga to medical qigong to nutrition. I've just We are at a time and a space where we have so much available to us. It's all about discerning what is actually most helpful for us. And so I'm really, really excited to be a part of this team and to work on finding your body's priority for your health, and being able to just serve up all of these different things that we have available. We'll have appetizers tonight, but then I do love the deep dive, so we'll enjoy that in the main program. So, thanks.
Thank you, Jean. So one piece that I want to really touch on is the whole spectrum of change. And that's why we brought on this team together tonight. Well, what we see is, at least from in my experience, I'll share a little bit of my process of change and how it's been throughout my life. When I first went to school to learn about therapy and understand how all this stuff works, we had a master project that they called, "What is your theory of change?" And for the 2 years I was there, I was working on that project, and we couldn't graduate till we presented our theory of change to our classmates and our cohorts. So for the entire time I was in this program, I had to be thinking about that. I had to be learning about, well, what is change? How do people change? Like, how do I change? And really personalize that process. And through that process, in my life at that time, there was incredible amounts of stress that I was not used to handling. I hadn't figured out how to deal with it at the time, hadn't understood it, and to put a little 10,000 foot view of what my life was going on at this time. I'm going to college for the second time. You know, it's been probably close to 10 years since the first time I went to college. I now have a few kids. I have a spouse who's still dealing with chronic illnesses, seizures in particular, and multiple sclerosis. So these different things are starting to play into her life. But seizures came a little bit later, so put that into context. And my family situation was difficult. We just been through a lot of financial stress. We survived the 2008 crisis by going bankrupt and losing everything and starting over. And all these things just kind of collided together. And I was working these jobs that didn't feel very fulfilling. I was in sales, I was traveling around doing things like that, but it did not feel fulfilling. And my life had come to this point where, all right, I'm very stressed and I'm going to school at the same time. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I get into this program, they start asking me about these change questions, and I'm trying to be tough and strong. And I've got a professor who's telling me, no, you need to break down. You need to get raw. You need to get to your vulnerable self. Like, what's the deep part inside you? I'm like, dude, I can't do that. I can't afford to break down. I can't afford to pull up, to slow it down. Do you have any idea what kind of stress I'm under? And he didn't care. Like, he just kept pushing me. And at that time in my life, I did not cry in front of people. I did not present weak. I was a lot more rigid, a lot more straightforward with that side of my life. He pushed me and pushed me and pushed me, and then I cried in class one day, and the tears flowed. And at first I was very embarrassed, and my throat would just hold and choke, and I could barely breathe. And then I started to open up little by little, brick by brick, as Shay would put it. And that process kind of opened me up, and all the stress I was feeling was actually worse because I was trying to hold on to so much control. So in my own theory of change, I was trying to control everything I had to learn to let go, and I had to learn to start accepting the things around me and moving more in a place of acceptance and peace. However, that pressure did bring me to a point of a lot of pain. And in that pain, I started to look for ways to get help, started to look for ways to change. So, in my own theory of change, my own life, I know I am a slow and hard learner. It takes a lot of pain for me to be like, I can't be complacent anymore. I've been sitting on this cactus bush for hours. It's time to take it out and do something different. So that's kind of my space. And going forward, it's just been a cycle for me. I'll move up a little bit, and then I'll fall back 10 steps. And maybe move up 5 steps, and I'll fall back 3. Every once in a while, I'll move up 12 and fall back 4. And it's just a space of, it's more of a jagged change cycle for me, and a process of becoming self-aware. So I'm going to head that off on the stages of change, and then I want to pass it on to each coach and each person here to share their perspective and their views as they have seen them fit. So,
real quick, Jared, I want to just highlight
go for it.
something that I think anyone who's listening to this or is joining us can relate to, is that idea of like, no, if I feel or if I go to this place you're suggesting, everything that I've been working so hard to keep together is going to fall apart. And that's a real, I think, deep concern or fear or reality. Because, it's like when you're water skiing, there's no way to like dismount gracefully. You always just fall in the water. But and so I think that's really, really insightful that you shared that. Like that, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shay, for that insight. So this piece I want to start with, when I started studying in school and I started learning about the stages of change, how do these things work? What do they do? And there's a mapped system that's used across therapy and other modalities of helping people that kind of shows you how things work. First stage is called pre-contemplation. Essentially, this is where you may not even understand that you need to change, or you may not even be fully aware that there's a deeper issue that needs to be addressed, but it's there. And it might be obvious to people around you. So it may not be obvious to you, but it might be obvious to somebody else. So in this stage, you're kind of wandering through life, knocking over things and banging things. You're like that bull in a china shop, but you're not even aware of that until enough things start to come into your awareness that you contemplate change. So that might look like, in addiction language, in a family that's struggling with addiction, the addict might be saying like, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. I'm not doing anything. I'm doing this to me. It has nothing to do with you. Well, that's absolutely not true. Everything you do affects the people around you. Nobody lives in a vacuum, especially in a family unit. So where you might think you're drinking alone at night, hiding in your room, or you might be using drugs secretively and not affecting anyone else, or watching hours and hours of pornography, or whatever that thing is, it's affecting the people around you. So when you become aware of that, that's one part, you might move into contemplation. I think this isn't really working for me anymore. This cactus bush is starting to hurt. I'm thinking I'm going to do something different. Thinking I might need to change it up a little bit. And that's kind of that space where if you are working with a coach or a therapist, or you're starting to trust a family member or friend, you might receive some feedback. Doesn't mean you're ready yet, but you might start to be like, I might do a little research. I might go talk to somebody or start Googling some things. I might see, is there a different way of doing this? Just being willing to ask that question. Can I do different? Is there something different I can do? Might actually help you move to the next phase.
Hey, Jared, I've found
Yes.
a lot, like vocabulary is changing fast. And can you just define for us, anyone listening, what pre-contemplation and even contemplation mean, so that we have a common understanding of what those are?
That's a good point. This terminology was created in the late 70s. And if we did this today, it might be like skibbity and the Riz and a few other weird words.
Yeah.
So we'll make this simple. Pre-contemplation is, I am thinking that there might be something I can maybe tell. Like there's something a little off. Like maybe call it icky. It just kind of feels icky. To use one of your words, my life is feeling a little icky. My friends seem like they're getting things going. My family, they seem like they're getting things going. I feel stuck. So starting maybe just that simple start of awareness, moving from being unaware to a little bit aware. And then contemplation is, all right, it's pretty obvious. I'm starting to see that I truly am stuck. I truly am in the sticky stuff. And then you go to preparation. I'm going to start preparing. I'm going to do research. I'm going to go figure out what is going on. How come this person seems to have their crap together and I just can't get it? So it's just kind of simplifying it to that. Where am I stuck in my life? How can I change? And do I want to change? That's another piece here. Is sometimes people don't even know they want to change yet until the people in their lives start pointing things out. I mean, and honestly, as soon as you're willing to go and change isn't that hard, but you've got to start looking for it. So these are the next two pieces. Start looking for it. Action. How do we take action in our lives and move to a space of change? An example I see in this is someone comes into their stuck stuff. And they're like, all right, I can see that there's a way. I've learned there's some stuff out there. And they start going down this path of knowledge seeking. I'm going to go learn. And then they'll see some pretty clear answers. And they might say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to learn some more. Because what I just learned looks really, really hard. And I don't want to do that. So they might slip back a little bit. So you go, oh, I can't take that kind of action. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to sit in this spot a little longer. And then they go forward. The reality is that when you're ready to start this process of action, you have to be willing to take accountability and acknowledge that you're 100% responsible for your own life. You can't stay in victim. You can't stay in blame. You can't stay in the I can't mentality. You have to move to a space of I can do it. If Billy Joe can do it, I can do it. If Shay Asla can do it, I can do it. If Gene or Chris can do it, I can do it. And just move into that kind of mindset and then start taking action. And I know Chris and Shay will jump into that a little more, so I don't want to go too deep on that. The last one is maintenance. So, all right, have I arrived? Have I arrived at this change point? Do I feel really good? And this is another piece that is really, really difficult to watch is when someone gets to that space, let's use addiction, for example. They get into a place where they've been in recovery for a month or 2 months or 3. They can start to feel really good and start to feel really proud of themselves. And then they can start to think, you know what? Things are great. I'm going to go back and do less. I'm not going to go and do the things that are working. And they may not be fully aware of this, but they might stop going to meetings. They might stop talking to people. They might start letting their value system slip again. They have all this built up equity, call it that, where they built up some credits, some points of doing good. But now that they start to slip back, then they lose it. And pretty soon there's this realization, and this came to me after watching so many people do this. Your change, your growth, your recovery is not your own. You do not own it. You have shared that with people. So as soon as you think it's your own, you start to slip backwards. You start to let go of getting there. You start to not show up for people like you said you would. Your recovery is not your own, period. You need to remember that and share the growth, share the process. So I'm going to turn it back over now to Chris to jump in, and then we'll have some Q&A, and we may just address some of these things in the end, or we might have some Q&A along the way. But for now, that's kind of my space, and I want to hand it over to Chris.
So I love the comment that your recovery is not your own. I don't know that I've ever heard that before, but I think that's.
I want to amen that too, Chris. I think that's fire.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I think there's power. Even going back to Jerry, what you said about the control thing, right? I think when we understand our recovery is not our own, and we realize it's also about showing up for others, I think that gives us less control, yet gives us more freedom to create other people as part of our recovery, which is extremely important. And I don't know if we didn't all text each other, but we did all wear black. So I just want to say I'm impressed with the team colors. We all have black shirts on. I realized that earlier. And I love it. You know what I'm saying? And just I just want to let everybody know, we did not text, we did not call each other. We didn't say, hey, everybody wear black. I guess we just all determined black was the color for today. We're all in mourning. Okay. So do you want to, I can present my own. So give me 1 second. Did you bring it up? Okay, cool.
Real quick, before Chris there, Jared, what do you feel is like a through line? So, with the big idea here is, we're taking different dimensions of change to give somebody a real, like the total package of some insight that they can take away. What would you say is the through liner that that we might stack on that each of us of your what you're presenting there on the stages of change?
Yeah, I feel like as we look at this, you learn how you personally change, and you do that by engaging in your community, whoever is involved in your support, the people you trust, the people you love, and you learn to start taking their feedback. So the through line looks like, at least for me, it looks like this. I start to realize that I can change. For one, it's possible. The idea is possible. I accept that there's a possibility for change, even if I have to start with just simply hoping that it's possible. If I can hope that change is possible, I can move from hope to the possibility of change. And then if I can stay in that mindset and trust my support system, my people, because usually at that phase, at least in my life, I don't trust myself or don't trust myself enough to do it on my own. But if I can believe that other people can help me change, I can include them in my system until I learn to trust myself. There's a saying, we love you until you learn to love yourself. We trust you until you learn to trust yourself. We support you until you learn to support yourself. So these are the pieces that help build us up. Then as that through line goes, we become aware of, all right, I know what I can do and how I can do it. And if I stay in this system and build momentum, I can sustain change. And in my life, it's been a lot of pain. And then I recognize that I don't have to stay in pain. That pain becomes less when I share it with people in my circle. And then I can move that to more of a directive where I choose my path and my purpose. So that's kind of my process of it, Shay.
Can I jump?
I love that. Go ahead, Jean.
So awesome. That the thought came to my mind as you were talking about that, learning to trust with your own journey. That cycle, the change cycle, continues forever, right? As you get into maintenance, you then start to pre-contemplate and contemplate something new. And you have that experience of having walked through that cycle successfully with and through other people. And you build on that. You build confidence, you build nuance, you build that belief that you really can, you're not ever stagnant. You're always moving. And I think that's why that cycle is such a powerful point that goes all the way through the learning processes.
Yeah, as we move to Chris, I think I would invite anybody who's listening, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to fit that gap of, when you've got people you care about that are being changed. And one thought I had too with that, Jared, is like that change, we don't always choose it. Sometimes life loves us enough to put in a place where we have to get ourselves, it inserts us into those stages of change, whether we want to or not. And then it's our option to choose that. And I think that, anybody listening, maybe there's an observation to make in like, where does your family system or your family dynamic, where does it get stuck in the stages of change? Because sometimes we're trying to change. It's not always about you. Because I love what you said about things you do privately, and they show up in our lives publicly. And if you can see how and look at your family, like, oh, we're always talking about change, but we don't do it. That's a common common, thing that in relationships or families they'll say is like, you just talk, but you don't do. And maybe that you can say like, oh, we get stuck in the contemplative stage of change, the pre-contemplative, or so I think there's a broad scheme too. Maybe listen can see that their family gets stuck in certain parts where they shame or guilt or deride certain other aspects of change. That might be the sticking point that if you can call awareness to it, when Chris talks about what he talks about, you'll see how you can change or flip the script or see how you can navigate that better.
All right, thank you guys. Jared, I also said I love that you said you don't trust yourself yet, and I think that'll come up throughout my presentation as about we can use a different word, but trust I think is such a huge thing, and life becomes overwhelming when you're first getting started in change. And if we look at any of the things that we talk about, like cycles or stages, it's not a linear story. There is much more to it. So I hope throughout this experience that you're all watching tonight, you get to a little taste that, as much as we'd like it to just be this like nice, consistent stages or circle, like Jared said, you do it more than once. Most of us will do it for the rest of our life, hopefully, and changing in different ways. Yet it's not just a consistent, just around the circle. You could jump from action back to contemplate. Like you can move quickly from space to space. So I'm here to talk about.
Chris, one thing I want to throw. I know you jump in, but when you say like the circle, and I think of addiction too. There's this process where people get in a mindset where they think they have to go back to another part of the stage cycle. So maybe they get to a healthy space, and they're like, then all of a sudden they're in an unhealthy space. They jumped around, and then they tell themselves, well, the only way out of this is to go use. Well, that's a lie. That's not true. That's the dark shadow telling you that. You do not have to use to get back to action or maintenance or whatever that looks like. What you do need to do is re-engage with the things that were working with you and continue to work with you. So that's I just want to interject that because I see it all the time. Like, well, I knew I was going to relapse. I did. I had to. And people build this pattern in themselves by their past presentation. Their past told them they have to use to get out of it. And that's absolutely not true. Maybe it's really hardwired in there and you got to take out the freaking axe and chisel that down, but it's not true. So go ahead. Thanks.
All right, guys. So the power behind change, that's what we're going to focus on today during my whole conversation. What we'll cover is the 3 Ps, right? Pain, pressure, progress. Again, this is so important to start to see differently, start to see pain differently, start to see why when Shay and I coach people, we tend to coach a client and then we coach family as well. And sometimes we coach both at the same time. And one thing I always focus on when I'm in it, and I can reference a client that I'm working with right now, is so often we want to, because we love somebody, we think, man, if we can do it for them, if we can, take a little pressure off, that person will be better off. So that's the reason pressure's there. And then, of course, we all want to see progress in our life. So we'll discuss that a little bit. I want to start with a story about 2 teams going to the South Pole. And I'll reference why this is important through my talk. So the team number 1, okay, as you can see, they're in action, they're moving, they're not sitting together taking a photo. Team 2, sitting together taking a photo. That has no reference at all. I just think it's a cool difference in the photos. These 2 teams, one has a game plan of, we're going to go 20 miles every day. Rain, sunshine, snow, blizzard, 20 below or 50 degrees outside. 20 miles every day, no matter what. Team 2 comes with a plan of, we're going to go when the sun is out and it's shining. We'll go as far as we can. And on the cold days, we'll hunker down. So these 2 teams, first 2 teams to ever make a quest to the South Pole. They go out, they have about the same funding. They have about the same time that they land. And so they both start out. And it quickly becomes relevant and noticeable that team 1, because they're consistent, because they have a game plan, they have consistency, they have a great team and a great mindset. That their plan that they're executing is a far superior plan, and it makes their mindset and their team far superior. So team one's trekking 20 miles a day, 20 miles a day, 20 miles a day. Team two, sometimes they'll go 60 miles. But the inconsistency is what hurts them. The mindset around their game plan is what hurts them, and the team buying into that. So long story short, team one makes it to the South Pole. They can't see team two anywhere. They know because they've been consistent. They know how many supplies they used to get there. They have an idea of how many supplies they'll need to get home. So they leave a certain amount of supplies because they haven't seen team two, and they figure if team two makes it, they may need extra supplies. So they leave extra supplies at the South Pole. The end of the story is this. Team one makes it back to their boat. They sail home. They become part of history. Team two becomes a different part of history. They're never seen from, they've never heard from again. People that go to the South Pole find remnants of them, of their quest, but they never see them again. And like I said, the important takeaways from the story is we have to start to look at how do we implement changes in our mindset? How do we create a new game plan? Because clearly the game plan that we've been playing isn't working. And then how do we create a new team? And that's part of coaching. We see so many great athletics teams, and they're not great at one point, but they get a new coach, and that they start to form a new team, a new mindset, a new game plan, a new way of seeing themselves. And this is huge in the power of change. So wants and change. Excuse me. So I was working with a client just last week, and we were sitting down and we were going through some of the wants and the things he wants to change in his life. And one of the key things that I noticed for most people that come from addiction is when they're looking at the wants and change they see, they're afraid to either acknowledge them because they don't want to sit there and talk about their wants. They've suppressed them, they've pushed them down, they've run from them for so long that it's scary. It becomes overwhelming. They get doubt about them, they get anxiety, this creates depression. So it makes the change that they want. And Jared brought it up at the end. He said they need to have hope and possibility. And hope and possibility are such key factors. And for most of the people coming through addiction, they've come through treatment more than once, or they've created a game plan on how to stay sober more than once, and it hasn't worked. So they have a lot of doubt and fear around that. And that prevents them from doing the new things that need to happen in order for that change that they want to have in their life. So want changes, things that come from it is, like I said, on the want side, there's the atrophy, which just means just like a muscle that you don't work out. If you suppress your wants, if you push down the things that you really want out of your life, and I did this for years, since I was using, I wanted a family, I wanted a wonderful wife and kids. And that was my younger life. That was my view of my younger life before I used. And then I got into drugs. And it made me push all those things away, lose focus of those, feel like they would never happen, and feel like Jared brought up the one thing, and I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it, but I'll just go back to the trust. Like I didn't trust myself that I was capable of having that. I didn't trust myself that I was capable of handling it if I did have it. And it felt like such a big hill because the momentum of my life was going backwards away from that. And I had to start to understand and shift my game plan and my mindset to create momentum to go in the direction I wanted to go. And then when we look at people and we talk to them about change, a lot of anxiety, doubt, and depression come up. So pain. So pain is one of those things most of us want to avoid. And in today's world, especially if you live in America, you can avoid it pretty easily. Like you can find the minimum amount of pain. And I always think that either we can choose our pain or choose our hard, or the hard will choose us. And for most of us, like I said already, the old stories are the things. So you have to fill the hill. So we know that pain is an important teacher. It's also an important part that gets us moving. It's the push. And we all need a little push. As Shay referenced, that most of us have somebody that we know that talks a lot about change, but not much change is left over after they talk about it. And so for me, when I look at my old stories, those are my limiting beliefs. And those are the stories that I'm very attached to, I'm very familiar with. And with my dynamic of my family, since I got sober in the same house that I got, used in for 17 years, luckily I found people that could help me because, as it says, the same roles. If you see where it says same roles, my old stories are reinforced by the same roles that I play with my family, that I play with the people around me. And there's always the old saying that Jesus, or even in his own town, Jesus wasn't a prophet. So if you're listening to this, you're like, man, I'm doing new things. I'm working with the person that I love, yet we're just keep doing the same circle over and over. I will say, I feel that. I see that. And I feel the pain, the frustration, the hopelessness that comes from that. And it's because we're constantly playing the same roles. So as we start to form that new game plan, and that's the reason if I go a few slides back, that's the reason that those new teammates, new game plan is so important. Because we have to start to adjust our roles. We have to start to get new people on our team that have never been on our team before, because they'll start to shift us. They'll start to understand how we funnel that pain to pressure. See, because pain for too long can deteriorate your mind, can deteriorate your body. It can just leave you hopeless. But if we can learn how to take the pain that causes pressure, because pressure makes diamonds, and your family member, the person that's struggling, if you're on here and you're struggling, all you need is some healthy pressure. Let's learn how to transform, to transmute the pain to pressure. This is where the true freedom comes for the person that's struggling, because now we start to give them, as our family member, we start to give them back, hey, these are your decisions. These aren't my decisions. I'm not doing them for you, right? So if these are your decisions, these are your consequences. And this is the thing I needed the most, because I learned, over time, I learned self-helplessness, which just simply means that things that I can do, I think at some point I can't do because somebody else did them for me enough. And it gave me a lack of belief, a lack of hope, a lack of self-love, self-worth, self-respect. So as soon as I learned that those decisions were mine and I had to own them through the consequences, good or bad, but that's how I got feedback, and that's how I learned. And that's how I learned that I was great enough to handle these things. And that came from the pressure. And then we always teach this, is we want to help the family be the supporter, not the doer of the things. Meaning, man, the family has done, most of the time we see the family has done for the person in addiction so much that they've learned that self-helplessness. They've learned, and they question their ability to be able to financially handle their own stuff, to pay for their own rent, to find their own place to live. So we want to help funnel, again, that pressure to become a supporter, meaning, and again, we'll get into that in the next slide in the progress. We want to help them as a supporter is learn the new avenues, meaning when they come to us and like, man, you know what? Hey, I need car insurance. I've never got car insurance. I'm struggling with that. I'm scared. We help them understand hey, here's a great way to reach out to people to find car insurance. That gives them an avenue and gives them hope that they can solve it. Then we allow them to stumble and fall through the process. And then once they're there, we're the supporter to help lift them up. Excuse me. And then progress. Everybody loves the progress. It's the most important. It's the funnest. So reinforcing the new game plan is the most important. And when I say that, again, we want to make sure that the new teammates and the old teammates are working to help the one individual, meaning that we do not let them fall back into the old ways, because as Jared said, with the stages of change, you move throughout them. But as much as we can reinforce a new game plan, they'll stay more in action and they'll move towards the way they want. So that's a key factor. And then guide them with space, meaning take a step back. You don't need to check in with them every day. You don't I understand that as you're a kid, you had parents, your kids that you're helping, that you love, are your kids, and you still want to be like, oh man, if I can help them, if I can step in enough and I can make those right decisions for them, it'll all work out. If I can protect them enough, everything will be fine. But the truth is, let's help guide them with space. And the last thing before the next few slides I'll leave you with is, this is like a grown baby. And no, that's not a picture of me. Most of you guys may think I dress up like that. I don't. That's not so I grabbed this off the internet. But the truth of the matter is, we're creating a brand new person. And I have a little girl, it's 2. And when I look at her, I can't tell you how much she loves when we reinforce the new good things she's doing. I want you to think about that. Think today, man, the person I'm working with, let me take a new measurement. My favorite quote is, my tailor's the most honest man I know. Every time he sees me, he takes a new measurement. We got to start doing that for each other. We got to start doing that for our loved one. Because I'll tell you this, my baby doesn't just love the positive reinforcement, doesn't just love man, this is the game plan. Hey, man, I see when you're doing it. I see you're making those choices. I see you're making that 1% little progress, because we're not looking for big things. See, my little girl took about, I don't know, whatever it was, 1.5 years to walk or whatever, or a year or whatever. Never once did we go hey, you should be walking. Why aren't you doing this more? We had a new game plan. You were on your back, then you flipped over. We had a new game plan of you walking. We reinforced those good things. We gave her encouragement. And we all need some pressure, but we all need some kindness. And that's what a good teammate does, is they lift you up. They put that pressure on you because they know you're capable. And we know each one of the people we love are capable. And they do it with kindness. So the takeaways today are mindset. We have to fortify somebody's mind, because they've stayed away from pain. They've numbed it out. They've created atrophy around the pain, around the things that they want. So we have to shift their mindset, and we have to help that mindset be able to feel the hill. So handle that pain and handle it in a new, healthier way. Then we help them to create a game plan, which is that pressure, which is that new way they can move from going from the pain to where they want to go. And then teammates. Because if you have a good teammate, they'll be there to lift you up. They'll be there to show you you're capable, and they'll be there to show you the way. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Great job, Chris. Thank you so much. That was deep and insightful.
Yeah, thank you. I
Shay,
think,
MC.
yeah, we're rolling to Shay. Take it away.
Before we want to marinate this just a moment, something I wrote down was, what you're talking about is, what makes this worth looking at, and Gene pointed out too, the stages of change there. It's a process that we're going through repeatedly at different stages of our life, right? So, when you're in your 20s and you've got a girlfriend and you live in an apartment, and you're building and making money, working a ton is really beneficial. But when you move into your 30s and you have a mortgage and you have a wife you've been married to for several years now, and you've got 2 young kids now, and you maybe do some service in the community, well, being a workaholic does not get you the same benefit as it did in your early 20s. So there's a way to approach these stages of change, and like you talked about, the script, the stories, we start going to the same levers to get the same results, and they don't work. And I think it's where a lot of people are like, what the heck? And they go, and it's natural to then, well, do it more, try harder. And the more you push the lever, the worse it makes. You're like, this used to work for me, and there's times that they do really work. But I think what you're talking about is like when you stop seeing the growth and results, that's the time to reassess like what's going on to find out what you need to change or look at and do differently.
I think that's well said. I want to say this. I think most of us in the change, we go through the door for the change, and then we look back and we try to push the door going back the old way. Yet we didn't realize that door on the other side we pushed through. So it's really a pull. But we want to go back the old way, and we're trying to push against old things that our body and our mind no longer want. And when we push against something, it pushes back against us, and we feel stuck. And we really just got to turn around and see the new door and go like, oh, okay, I just go through this one then. And it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and that brings the whole saying of knock and it shall be open. That's the knocking process, is facing the door. There it is, and by reaching, that's the knocking. By making those small changes, by running each day, that's the knocking, and then the door has to open, it has to yield. And where you got to be facing it though. You can't be looking at the old one you just came through and try and like reach for that other one.
Right. Well said.
Sort of a Lot's wife thing, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Totally.
I don't think there's any sort of about it. I think that's exactly what it is.
Well,
I want the benefits of change, but not the risks to it.
Not the pain, if you will.
Yeah.
In ancient Chinese medicine, there is a phrase that stagnation is the mother of disease, and that's physical and emotional. Right? That's progress. Like if we don't keep pushing and moving through our natural processes continually for the big, the little, the good, the bad, the ugly, it doesn't matter as long as we're in movement, that we're going to keep, creating positive change as we just keep exerting that positive effort, like Chris was just talking about. I just kept going back to Chinese medicine as you were speaking, Chris. That's so powerful.
I think I will take that.
My acupuncturist, he's Chinese, and he'll say, "Moving hinge never rust." And he says it over again, moving hinge never rust. Running water never stale.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it flowing, keep it going.
Keep moving. Yeah.
Something interesting, Gene. If you do find a Chinese sage, give them a Chinese proverb, and they'll give you one back. I learned these from him because I was just listening to him talking. I'm like, I'm going to give him one to see what happens. And I told him, like, hey, Dr. Dean, when's the best time to plant a tree? And he's like, I don't know, like 20 years ago.
Right.
When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. And he's like, sits there, and he's like, So then he starts dropping them back. A little exchange here.
Yeah,
so,
that's good synergy. I love that. Absolutely.
Instead of a breakdancing fight, you're having a proverb slinging fight.
I did not win, Shay, just so you know. I lost. Landslide.
Oh, that's perfect.
You show up. You show up.
I showed up.
Jared, when you have, so as we swing into my lane here, I found understanding where you come from really is valuable insight. Not just me, in The Secrets of Happy Families by Bruce Feiler, he found that too. That if you want your kid to have navigate teenage life better, teach them about their family history, so they know what DNA is in them. So if I've got 2 or 3 generations of alcoholics in my family, what stages of change do you find somebody like me really struggles with, or it seems to always be at that same stage, or it gets intimidated by it, or whatnot? Is that a useful question?
I think it's useful, and I think it's difficult to answer. My best way to answer that is some people decide that they're going to be the ones that break the generational patterns.
Yep.
And I'm not so sure they decide that of their own volition, or if it was kind of predetermined. Like they came to Earth and they were the one who had the strength, the power, the willingness to suffer enough to say, we're done. We're going to break this cycle. Because there's plenty of people who don't change, that do not break the cycle, and they pass it on to their kids, their grandkids, their great grandkids. But there seems like there's always someone in that generational cycle that's just like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm not passing this on to my kids. In my case, anger was passed down. Like there was so much anger in my family, and so much anger in my childhood. I was like, no. And it took me recognizing that spreading into my own kids, yelling at my son and him yelling back. I literally heard my own voice, and it freaked me out.
I can relate to that.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that. I'm done. There's still imperfections, still make a ton of mistakes, but I've chosen to wear that mantle or wear that armor that's just heavy and say, I'm gonna be the one who breaks this, and I'm gonna go fight this dragon, and I'm gonna be a place that's safe for my children's anger, a place that's safe for my family to come to, that they know that when they're with me and around me, I can be one who can take that and not give it back in heavy doses. Not sure if that answers the question, but that's kind of my view on it.
Can I weigh in on that real fast, Shay?
Please.
One of my favorite studies, they actually took DNA strands, moved it to a different location than the test subjects, and observed that as they, actively and systematically changed the emotional state of the subject, the DNA responded. So our tight, stiff, unhealthy DNA status can be changed proactively in the moment. We are not condemned in any way by our DNA, by our family history, because we know now that, through different manipulations of the autonomic nervous system, that we can real time impact our DNA and our epigenetics.
Yeah, I believe that. I think that's a great setup for me to go, because where I want to go with you right now is just the introduction about promises and the stories, the scripts. So, Chris and I were fond of the axiom that every choice is two choices. You're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And change is always happening, whether we embrace it or resist it or aware of it or ignorant to it, it's always happening. And the advantage and the pro of you being here with us and coming back on the end of May is that the more awareness you can create around it, the more empowered you can become. And the more empowered you can become in your own ability to change, the more you feel like you live in this benevolent universe that's here to conspire for your goodness. And in reality, the more it responds in kind. And so I think that's a big thing, because we all have our favorite things we're willing to change and unwilling to change, and things we're willing to go and do. And a lot of it, especially the reason that coaching is becoming such a prominent feature with around us. Like, I think everyone here has given and gotten coaching on multiple aspects of their life for the last several years. And it's because the world around us is changing so fast. I used to be able to keep up on being a good parent and being a good Christian and excelling my work and my hobby of soccer. But now things are changing so fast, I can't do that. So I'm going to get some coaching on how to be a better soccer coach. I'm going to get some help with, how to be a better Christian. And then I'm going to get a relationship coach, because I want those to work. But that's why this is becoming such a great avenue. So by being here, we're going to help you adapt to the rapid changes that are happening all around us, so that you don't go to hopelessness. So if you're here, we're really hoping that you don't go to that place of like, this is all nice, but it's not for me. Because all of us here in our seats, we not only have made big changes, are doing it, and are getting more and more confident that whatever comes, we'll figure it out. And that's a great place to be operating from. Like Gene was saying, like, you don't want to be in those problems and feel like that's done and now I'm done. No, that's never how it is, because you're always going to get the option to change and adapt to the world you're at, because that's where the joy lives. That's the reward, right? You feel the joy and you feel positive emotion. And it's that as we move from the why we do things to how we do things, what the things that we do and then with Gene, is the stories and scripts we tell ourselves are what really set us up to do the actions that are we're acting out, right? So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let me pull it up.
I think he just, let me see. I think he accidentally X'd out. Oh, there he is.
Hey, sorry about that.
You're good.
Let me pull up the document I want to share with you guys. And then I'll share it there. Where are you at? That's not what I want to share.
Not that one.
Uh-uh. Okay, I'm getting there, guys. There's that, and there we go. Okay. And just do this. Let me just do my whole screen. Can you guys see this stories and scripts?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wonder why I can't see you guys at the same time. That's all right.
Oh, I can change that back if you want, but right now it's set to we're all watching your screen.
Okay, this works.
Okay. If you had two screens, I think you could do it, but with just one screen, it's going to show you.
This is a process that it's inspired by Jim Lair's book, The Power of Story. And let me go to the end, the outline. It's here to do. And there we go. So when we want to change or we want to be different, and especially in the situations where it's something we care about, is important to us, or people that are important to us that we care about, those are the ones, the opportunities that we're most excited about, probably most want to change, and also present a unique challenge. Because if they're important to us, we have this story around what we're doing. And when I say story, what I mean is the thinking or the believing that goes behind the action that we do. So, for example, I'll give you a personal example. So, I want to talk to my spouse about something, like I want to go work out together. So, I'm working out. She's not. She said she wants to, but it's not happening. I want to have that conversation, but I don't want to have it because it feels hard. It'll turn confrontational. It goes critical. There's defensiveness, and then I stonewall. But behind that experience, there's a story I'm telling myself that when I'm in the contemplative or pre-contemplative stage of, hey, I would love it to go work out with my spouse, just a walk. That I tell myself that I can ask her, but she's going to say no, or it's never going to happen, or that means I have to go, or then I don't get to do this other thing, or she's going to tell me that I start things but never finish them, or you'll do it for a few times and then you'll quit. That script, that story is what goes into the mode when Chris was talking about how there's pain or conflict or adversity, and then we have this option to confront it, to engage with it, to be with it, to avoid it. And there's going to be a story or a script around that. And so if we're willing to step back and be like, the story I'm telling myself is that I can't, or I won't, or it won't, or it's too hard, or it's too difficult, or it's not a big deal, or they're just a kid, or I hate my spouse, or whatever it is. If we're willing to grab a small story around something we're willing to change and start addressing the story that we're telling ourselves that is bringing about the behavior that we don't like, we can get to the truth of what it is we're telling ourselves and what we're choosing to believe. Now, what we're believing and choosing, it may not be the truth. In fact, often it's a half truth. More often than not, the things that keep us from what we want are always half truths. If they're an untruth, if they're a lie, it'd be easy to see through and you'd be addressing it. It's the ones that are half truths or mostly true or not entirely like a lie that are where we often stumble. We like doggy paddle around, like, oh, I'm swimming. Well, are you really swimming? You're not drowning, you know? And so there's a process here of like looking at a story. So here's some what I have in mind. So if you can go after a behavior or an experience you're having that what I've come to find is all of us have this inner wisdom and it's in our bodies. And it's such a blessing that our bodies, when you talk about your conscience is bugging you, that's a real feeling. That's a real thing that it comes up in everyone's body. Or that if your gut is telling you something, or your heart is called, the heart wants something, those are real things that are going on in your body that are there. It's ancient wisdom. It's how your spirit connects with what's going on around you in the real world. And if you've got some inspiration about, like, for example, you come home from work, and when you come home from work, you say the obligatory highs and hellos, but then you find yourself on the couch at the kitchen table, checking in with work emails, following with calls, and checking, news, right? And what it's turning into is your wife's kind of made some comments about, hey, you're not really with us. Hey, it'd be nice to like have you. Hey, could you help out? Your kids are kind of tugging at you. You're kind of like, leave me alone. I need my time. I need my time to decompress. Okay, that's a story. It's not a real thing. It's what we tell ourselves to get a need or a want met. And before I forget, Chris, someone wrote down about what you said is I have found such a profound change in my life when I own the wanting. I love that you said the want, because often that moment we're done with work, and let's say it's been a good to better than expected day, an average to a better than average day. We come home, and if kids are a core part of our why we're here, we want to engage. We want to be helpful to our wife. We don't want to go distract. And news will always be there. And work emails, you just got done being with them for 8 or 10 hours or 6 or whatever it is. And it's that transition space that we want to have a good, like when we come home, it's, hey, I'm so glad that daddy's come home. I'm just glad as I could be. And we want that big issue, but we're getting and telling yourself that I need my space, or you need to decompress, or I'm overwhelmed, or I've got to answer this email, or why don't you have it, or kids don't bother me right now. And if we can say, this is something I want to change. I want I think there's a phrase of like the crossroads. The crossroads of our life are super important if having a healthy, functional, like abundant relationship with family members over time. When you come home, when you leave, meeting people at school, dinner time, nighttime routine, morning routine, how we interact with those crossroads are extremely valuable. All right. And if your inner wisdom is telling you like, hey, you need to be better, you can be better, and you want to be better. But in the moment, you've had now, let's say it's an average to less than good day. Then you're like, yeah, for sure. Now leave me alone, or I'm cranky, or even worse, we react, or we snap at somebody, or we're grouchy, or we're snarky, we say mean things. So this process of like, okay, if I can grab the story, I've got to actually write it. I've got to like find an index card, a piece of paper, and be like, this is what's happening. This is what I'm telling myself. And then I'm going to ask, is it true or real? And as you decide what's true and real about it, then that gives you, it creates the space for you to have it to show up differently. And what you should experience is some kind of shift in it of energy. It's not always positive. Sometimes you have like a big outflow of like a foof of energy. And either that's something as you release it, it's a real thing that now is a part of you, or you feel a liberation of energy because now you are making a change and you're feeling the benefit of saying nice things to your kids and being helpful when you get home and having dinner together as a family. And so you identify that this is my story, you write it out, and then you share it with someone, then all of a sudden you're able to now write a different story. And it's really simple and it's really effective, but it's not, and you know, the simple things to do are the simple things not to do, but it's writing out a story of this is when I come home, this is what I want it to look like and feel like and be like. And it's like you got to write out. And as you start then practicing and implementing that, and you have a goal that I'm going to show up this way because that's what I said I was going to do, or whatever promise you need to keep, you start experiencing the change, and it's possible you even experience the benefits of that. Now, a lot of times we don't change is because we're in this entanglement where I'm letting something happen around my life because it allows me to get away with something that I want to get away with. And what I mean by that is like an indulgence. Like I'm not going to get my wife to go and work out with me because I don't really want to go do workout either. I want to rather, you know, get an extra helping of food, watch something on TV, and just, you know, talk about the government or something like that, right? So often we've got to decide that I got to change because that's what I want. And that's what I want to give. And something that Chris said that I think is super powerful is if you're going to change your story around something and you're allowing your body to inspire you, because you know this experience of coming home and that transition, that might relate to some of you, and most of you probably doesn't, right? But there's something in your life that it's small. Think small. That you're inspired, like, I really could do better at that. I've wanted to read to my kids at night, and I'm not doing it because I'm telling myself I'm so tired. Well, let's look at that story and let's start seeing what script am I believing or choosing to believe about that time of night and about what reading stories to my kid really means. And so as we look at that, we might get the benefits of that, but the story we are inspired to look at and rewrite, I wrote down here, Chris, is that story is there to bless someone in your life. Someone in your life, by you choosing to rewrite your story so that you're getting the change that you want, that will be a boon to someone around you. You might find that your kids want to hang out with you more. You might find that your wife says, "Oh, wow, you've actually been really nice when you come home," or "Hey, honey, thanks for having me come walk with you. It's been like 5 times, and I'm feeling better. It's even better. I really appreciate that." Your story changing doesn't stay with you. In fact, it can't. In fact, that's the point. We're changing here because it blesses the people around us. So in that way, we're doing it for others, but we've got to do it for ourselves. It's that duality that I think is so fascinating, and why coaching and you know coming to a workshop like this is so valuable. It's because those nuances sometimes are hard to feel or see in the moment, and then it's time to know what to work on. So that's the second part I just wanted to highlight is part of what we'll work on too, or bring to the table on this workshop on the full paid workshop is we'll identify some promises that you want to keep, that you will keep, that we'll start keeping. Okay. We'll create a little sheet and we'll say, hey, you'll create a little thing to keep track of like, am I keeping my promises or not? And they need to be around things that are important to you that you care about, right? And as you look at, hey, I've got some promise I need to keep. What's my excuse I'm giving? Why I didn't? What are the consequences? And keeping and knowing that when you have a promise that you are inspired to keep, and you start keeping it, and you do the consequences when they come through. When you do that, it creates positive emotion, and not just the positive emotion, because what that also does is it starts pruning and unwiring the circuits that are around the story you tell yourself that I can't, or it won't, or it shouldn't, or it doesn't, or I need something else before I can start, or whatever it is you tell yourself. We start unwiring those circuits, and then we start rewiring something else like, oh, I actually can go on a date once a week and I hated it. And then I learned to like it, or I'm experienced that part of keeping a promise and that I had an immediate benefit, or you know what, I keep my promise because that's making me feel better about who I am and how I show up. So those are two things that you gotta start making promises, because if you don't have a promise and you're willing to keep, you don't have responsibility, you can't take to a purpose, and you don't have positive emotion. And I think those are things that really are key and integral to changing, is having some positive emotion there and having some purpose thing to it. And those are found by being responsible for something and then having an aim to aim at. If you have an aim to aim at, then you can actually make the progress. And it's the sharing. It's the sharing it with somebody that allows like everything to become possible. And I think that's really the the thing here, that when you see little things become possible, it all can become possible. When you see how the why you're understanding it, when Chris and I are seeing what you can do or stop doing, the strategy and tactics. And now as I do the handoff here to Jean, and she talks about the chemistry, we can want, like, if you have those feelings like I want to make change and I'm good for a few days, or I'm good, but then when I hit that time of the month I can't do it, or I've got this belief that I just can't get over. Guess what? Often it's just your chemistry. You're not a bad person or a good person. Your spouse doesn't want evil on you. Your kids aren't there trying to, suck the life out of you. As you allow your story to change, your chemistry now is free to respond, and your neurobiology chemistry can be different. If you're willing to employ what Jean's going to talk about, or look at it, or get some of her expertise, you can start now affecting the change on a spiritual, physical, and mental way, which I think we have all found super abundant in our lives. And really, with what we know now that we didn't even know 5 years ago, is super powerful. And my final thing is, change. When you decide to change something, it's not a linear thing. Like there's certain parts of your life that they have an outsized impact on everything, and they're the things we don't want to talk about: sex, money, religion. Like physical health, being like having a purpose and connected to God. Like there's a few things that those areas, if you make changes in those, they have like this spillover effect in other parts of your life. So you make changes in the small things that are important to you, you'll see how to change in other areas of your life. But I think that's a good primer for what we'll talk about at the paid workshop of seeing the stories, writing them out, looking at what's true and what's not true, deciding the story that you want, and then putting into practice and little tactics to make it work, and then making some promises and flipping keeping them. So, Gene, I hope I've set you up well on that. Any thoughts or comments from you guys?
Just want to say that's awesome, and really, really good tools to put in practice, and really good insights. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the power of the story. That's so beautiful. Thank you for me. That felt really deep and interactive. Like that is on all, in Chinese medicine. I love Chinese medicine. I love physical medicine. I'm a nutritionist who uses homeopathy. I'm a Bredesen trained practitioner. But I love the Chinese and the energy, because the three bodies are so connected, right? Our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual bodies. And the Chinese do so much to capture that. And I feel like you really brought that in, Shay. Thank you. That's so great. All right, so let's jump into our capacity for change. Our physical bodies really do impact our spiritual and our emotional selves, but our emotional and spiritual selves also impact our body. So recognizing that this is really part of the story, but it is a part of the story that we can impact through that 1%. I love that 1% change, and how how big of a thing that is to make these small changes. I really appreciated Shay saying think small, because small changes have a big impact when you get into the biochemistry of the body. I was looking for the picture and I couldn't find it. One of a Harvard doctor that I love to study with, Dr. Datis Karazian, he put together a slide once because he loves to diagram metabolic processes. And there's always like one slide that he'll do a, 1,400 page binder on just this one slide of a metabolic process. So you really get to know it deeply. And at a conference once, as a joke, he put them all together on a slide. And I'm sorry, I couldn't find it, but it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. And he was doing it as a joke, so we'd recognize how overwhelming this can be for ourselves and others. But it hit me that, my goodness, one impact, one little thing that you do to your biochemistry to improve it makes this huge ripple effect across all of your metabolic processes. So we are in a position really of power to make that 1% change and make it matter. I added in this little change cycle here that shows those basic steps that we've been talking about in this cycle. Can you see my cursor? No?
No, we can't. Sorry. I can point wherever you want, though.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if that will actually do any good or not.
Yeah, just at the arrowheads, really. If we look at those points, these kind of landmarks along the way as places that we can exert that little 1% of influence, we can help move things. And this is really powerful, especially at this crossroad where relapse versus maintenance. Sometimes our biochemical status can make a big difference in which way that can go. So yeah, go ahead and change it to the next slide. This is from a 2018 study. I am a little bit obsessed with the brain and how it functions, and dementia. This is a functional image of what's happening inside the brain. Our perspective is off a lot here because of just how the slide worked out, but it's an image going down the center of the brain. And so to your far right, as you're looking at the screen, that's the frontal lobe, and to your far left, that's the back of the brain, the cerebellum, etc. The upper image is a healthy brain. Look at all that activity, flow, the nutrients, all of this activity happening in that frontal lobe. I know that this person has full use of his or her brain capacity at the moment that this image was taken. The lower image is a person who is in a depressed state. And notice that frontal lobe does not have the blood flow, the electrical activity happening, that neuronal synaptic firing is not happening. And this is just to show you how real depression can be in the brain. And what we're doing in the brain can have a dramatic impact on that actual flow state in your brain. And according to this same study, these are the key points where we can exert some influence. They're what I like to call pressure points, where we can go in, we can make a change a little bit at a time, just like any long-term lasting change, through our diet and our lifestyle, and a few other factors that we'll get into. So our stress, obviously, these methods of change help reduce the stress so much. I do heart math intervention trainings. It's a subset of coaching specific to changing the autonomic nervous system and helping the autonomic nervous system to stay or have the ability to move into that relaxed state where the brain, and specifically the frontal lobe, is healthier. So blood sugar, inflammation, and growth factors. These are all things that we can go much more deeply into. All right, let's go to the next slide. We won't go deep here. Your brain functions using neurotransmitters. This is the language of your brain, and this is just a quick little snapshot of 5 of the major neurotransmitters that impact how we function. When we bring in the right nutrition, and especially our minerals, we can have a direct impact on these neurotransmitters. GABA is one of the most important of these neurotransmitters, and it's so directly impacted by our various multiple mineral levels. So getting to know through testing what's going on and looking at which of the neurotransmitters you or your loved one might be struggling with is part of the journey toward healing that. The body makes, your brain and your gut make these neurotransmitters. For instance, serotonin, literally 90% is made in the gut, but does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So we need to support gut health and we need to support brain health simultaneously, because both of them are going to impact our mood. So this is just a little glimpse of where we can exert pressure individualized for that person. Any questions on that from you guys or from anyone in the listening group? No.
I've learned from my own research, like GABA is something that I need. So each brains are different, and as you learn more about your brain, and it goes back to family history, you can dial in and be like, hey, this is, and they're a lot of these are very simple ways to incorporate the solution, isn't it?
Yeah. And I do I have brain health symptom assessment forms that really can help. Just by filling out a form, we can get down to, maybe what needs some support for you. The GABA receptors are affected by hormones, and they are where a lot of the substances exert their influence on how you feel. So this is a good one. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I am so in love with Dr. Bredesen's work. I always look at the brain through this perspective. Dr. Dale Bredesen has published work showing, with strong diagnostic work from MRIs to cognitive assessments, that in over 100 published cases in peer-reviewed journals, that Alzheimer's or dementia can be reversed. In over 100 cases, it has happened. And that where right now 1 in 8 of our elderly have dementia or will currently have dementia, that with our new understanding of the brain and what's actually working real time, he's calling it now optional. That dementia is optional. So whether we're looking at long-term health or just having the best use of our brain and our neurotransmitters now, these 7 points that Dr. Bredesen has outlined are the key to building long-term health in the brain and therefore in your life.
Jane, can you explain the stimulation one a little bit? I'm not quite sure how that plays in here.
So there's multiple forms of stimulation there, from red light therapies to brain activation to exercise, right? Exercise is broken out specifically, but that our brain needs novelty, our brain needs change. And notice at the center that neuroplasticity is the goal and the measure of how your brain is doing. That's essentially neurological response to change. So
your capacity to change. Yeah. Really.
So you're healing your brain by making changes in your life. Isn't that beautiful?
Which means you can make more change going forward, huh?
The more you change, the better you get at change, neurologically speaking.
So on stimulation, I see like this with kids who play too many video games or too much computer.
Yeah.
Where's the line between too much stimulation?
Well, it's targeted stimulation. We want the right kinds of stimulation. And with Dr. Bredesen's program, things are very well studied. So if we're just producing kind of a toxic form of dopamine, which is what's happening with gaming, then it's not a nice broad upliftment of all of the neurotransmitters with a focus on dopamine, like when you have a hug or a positive interaction. It's a negative. If you ever read Dopamine Nation, it gets into this pretty powerfully. And
The gremlins.
The gremlins, yes. So this is something we'll dive into a little bit more. I feel like this is the most all-encompassing program that's out there, but the dietary and lifestyle habits that are built into this can be added bit by bit. These are things that I talk about with our loved ones that are at I Am Recovery. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I love it. I love this little diagram, and I'm curious about supplements and detox. I've heard people say the spectrum of this, as some people say supplements are expensive urine, or to eat enough vegetables, you don't need them. And then
Right.
detox is you do too much too fast, you get sicker anyway. Can you touch on both those points and maybe the counter arguments on that?
Absolutely. Let me start with detoxification, right? And of note, all of these intersect. None of them sit in isolation. When our body is detoxifying, we often think of the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the lungs, right? The organs of detoxification. But phases 1 through 3 happen on the cellular level. So if we don't have the right biochemistry, if we don't have enough NAD, if our mitochondria, if our cellular membranes, if these are all weak and not nourished, this process can't function on that cellular level. So what if you get some cadmium in your thyroid or some mercury? How's the body supposed to clear that if you don't have the core nutrients that your body needs to do that? And this is why supporting detoxification in a smart and biochemically sound way is very important without spiking your blood sugar. Your insulin status is huge. So coming in and knowing what's actually happening and looking at the different biomarkers is super important. Supplements, I have an absolute love-hate relationship with them because over-the-counter supplementation, studies of certain large, commonly visited stores, off-the-shelf studies have shown that 70 to 80, depending on which study, % of the supplements that were tested right off the shelf did not contain what they said. Sometimes that's different dosing. Sometimes it didn't contain any of what it said.
Wow.
And the fillers necessary to make those cheap supplements are incredibly toxic to the microbiome, which is responsible for making your neurotransmitters. So cheap supplements are not a good choice. Cheap fish oil is one of the worst, and everybody hears about it from me all the time, right? I don't know if I can pull up, maybe I'll pull that up at the end, but fish oil supplements in the United States are exponentially the most toxic substance in one of the 2018 studies that I love. So it's really important that you get it from a reputable professional source. And it's also really important that you don't overdo it. You want to make sure it's in bioavailable form. So doing it right is really important. Some of the
is there a line where the nutrition outweighs it and you don't need supplements anymore? Or I've also heard our food supply in the United States is so depleted and nutrient deprived that you probably can't get that anymore unless you grow your own food and organic soil for whatever. Just curious about that on your perspective.
And our soil is so depleted, and our diversity of plant life, right? We used to have, I remember, I'm also a permaculture design consultant. I love ancient practices. And I'm not going to be able to pull up the accurate numbers here, but something like 35 different varieties of green beans was a low level a generation ago. That we've essentially created extinction of some of the most nutritious vegetables that were. And we've kind of bred toward what's nice for the shelf, what's nice for shipping to the store, etc. So I believe our soil is so depleted that it's not really possible to get all of the minerals that you need. And I also really just want to age well. I have clients who are older who will say, oh, do I have to take that glutathione? And I'm like, I'm taking it because I just really like feeling good. I just like being healthy, and I love that. I love looking forward to the next decade. I don't look at aging with fear because my body's nourished. I honestly, when I turned 50, I was like, this is the best decade ever. I feel stronger and healthier than I did 2 decades ago. And now I'm looking at 60 with a big smile on my face, because the body isn't aging, is actually inflammation and deficiency. That's what it is. And so anyway, there's my little rant.
Awesome.
But
thank you.
My other point on that nutrition, getting your nutrition from food, is that how we eat our food is incredibly powerful. And I want to hit that as a couple of things that we can upgrade right now based on just this discussion today, if we want to hit the next couple of slides. Let's see. Let's skip over these two. They're just some basics. I want to hit these are just some basic rules that I teach a lot in class. Eat your foods as close to the form in which it arrived on the planet. Right? All of a sudden, if you can get it out of boxes and bags and get it to how it actually came, your nutrition is intact. If it's not microwaved, the enzymes are intact. If it's not heated, the B vitamins are intact. If it's not overheated. So this is one of those simple 1% upgrades that we can all add to our life. Okay, next. And this is one of my favorite rules. Always eat your food with your seat in a chair. If you are in a fight or flight or a stress response, your body does not produce hydrochloric acid because you're in a fight or flight response. Digesting food isn't your body's priority. And if you don't have adequate hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor, your minerals will not be extracted from your food. Therefore, they cannot be absorbed. And without minerals, your mood cannot be balanced. So just making that simple upgrade of sitting down, doing a breathing exercise, maybe pulling up the experience of gratitude, will increase your nutrition without even trying to change your dietary intake. Of course, I want to change your dietary intake and upgrade that too. And then one little clarifier, next slide. Not this seat, right?
Not the fast food lane.
Never. Sit in a seat that doesn't have wheels and relax and eat your food. And just that one upgrade can be very, very powerful. I think there's another slide about food.
Well, they're British. Does it apply? Is it for the American or British? Does it matter?
You know something funny about that, Shay? In England, the BMWs don't sell cup holders. It's considered rude and like inconsiderate to eat or drink in your car. Your car is
respect the tea, huh? You got to respect the tea.
We had the privilege of living in France for a while, and my husband's a bit of a workaholic, and boy, he took some grief for sitting at his desk and eating. And the school children had a 2-hour break and a 7-course meal. Whoa.
It's probably nutritious too, and not fake food.
Oh yeah,
That's amazing.
lots of raw foods, right? Crew everything. And it really shows the difference in priority. And we don't really always take that into account when we compare stats between countries. And I think that's a biggie. If we can learn to just relax and enjoy our food and give ourselves that gift of time, we are going to change our nutritional profile dramatically. I want to talk about this rule specifically. Eating together, making it a celebratory social time is the greatest gift you can give to your loved ones. I see this in the house here. When they start cooking together, maybe there's one who loves to cook, or maybe it's a collaborative effect. But when a group of individuals here at I Am Recovery start eating together, I see their love and collaboration just dramatically rise. I see them lift each other at a whole new level, and they talk about those meals. This is something that is so big, and we can do this in our families, in our friend groups, and make sure it's really like positive. It's not a time to debate politics. It's a time to show love and appreciation, because if you do, everyone at the table has digested their food from a place of relaxation response, adequate hydrochloric acid, beautiful minerals, and boy, everybody's mood is going to continue in an upslope. Your mood is going to feel better and better.
Something cool about this, Gene. I used to help run the Strength in the Family program, it's a program designed to help children and family come together. And you actually go to the schools, like the junior high or the high school, and you invite families to come in, and you do a little education piece. But there's two things that they focus on the most. One is eating together, so that everyone gets around a table, and it's socializing. It's topics, like you said, they're non-stressful. Sometimes we can put like a little card out to ask some questions. And then the other thing they focused on was listening. Just listen to your child, listen to each other, yes. Ask a question, and then just sit back and listen. And then I call that my time. Like, what would you like to do? And then you listen to them, they say what they want to do, and just really focus on that side of it. So I love that you brought this up. It's so powerful. It's needed everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you or your loved one have meals alone, you can still do this. I recommend a little candle or a pretty little flower or whatever. Set a plate, go to Goodwill and find a plate that is so colorful and crazy it makes you happy, right? But make even meals alone a little bit celebratory, and spend a minute patting yourself on the back because you're eating a beautiful meal that's nourishing your body and your soul. So just setting that vision can be something that can change our rushed meals. I remember eating out of a pot over the sink, right? Like, gotta go, gotta rush. How much of that did I really digest, right? Like, how emotionally filling was that? Not at all. Did it contribute to emotional eating? Absolutely. Right.
You know, Gene, there's that study about the people who were given a milkshake, and one was told it was a nutritious, beneficial milkshake, and the other was told it was a super rich, indulgent, high sugar milkshake. And the amount of granulin that their body produced was very different. The way their body absorbed it, the ones who thought they were having a nutritious shake, their body absorbed it in a very different way than ones who thought they were having an indulgent, over-sugared, over-the-top milkshake. And to imagine that you could change your story about your dinner time, that, dinner time is something that if we do this in a different way than we have been, and we intend to make it an enjoyable experience, our mood regulation, our bodies, our resourcing will be way more than if we're just trying to, track calories in my MyFitnessPal and like, I'm under 2,000 calories, but if I'm under super stressful eating, then like, how much is that good does that do me? And then I'm feeling depleted and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And that adrenaline, that cortisol, both spike your blood sugar. Yeah. Right. So here you've got this well-planned meal that you aren't actually benefiting ideally from. So this is big. So I think those are the points. We'll talk more about plasticity and all of those things in the paid class. We'll get into more about the specifics of how to implement the Bredesen program and bring in, we won't do the full thing specifically, but we'll bring in those elements that make a difference in diet and lifestyle, and how to optimize. One of my very first functional neurology classes, I loved it. One of my favorite teachers, and he taught us how to, assess neurological status and that sort of thing. And then he said, that thing that your client or your patient fails at, the solution is to keep trying that thing. If they can't wave their hands at the right rhythm for the length of time, the solution is you do that. If they can't touch their nose because of cerebellum, then you do that. And so knowing that everything you're doing in your life, as we bring in those things that might be a little hard to add, that walk at night, or that your brain wants that thing. And the more we bring it in, the easier it is for it. It adapts, it learns, and then it produces more good things for you. It's a continual benevolent cycle as you give your brain what it wants. So there you go.
Gene, that was amazing.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Well done.
Thanks.
That benevolent cycle, I really appreciate that. That if through this experience that we're going on together, and you, as we offer you our gifts and talents, if you can flip that story in your mind, that I live in this, my body is truly inspired, and it will guide me if I will listen. And if that's the case, it's a benevolent thing. It's there to work with me and be together with me. We're not at odds there. That really resonated with me. I like how you said that.
Yeah, that really does capture the body. It just get out of its way, give it the foundation of what it needs, and watch it amaze you. Yeah.
We look forward to working with the group that meets up with us on the paid workshop. The thing about change is the change is not linear. It goes exponential. So as you add, this and that and the other from this meeting, and then the workshop, you add 2 more things. It might feel like this, but all of a sudden then it goes like this. I think that's what you're talking about there too. Is if you're able to leverage your chemistry, your beliefs, your awareness, and some tactics to make it a part of your daily experience, all of a sudden your ability to change is very different. And Jared, you've seen this happen. Is we see people come through in the recovery space, and it used to be they drank, or they had a problem with cocaine, but now it's they drink, they vape, and they do weed with them for the prescription, and they do heroin. And they're here for heroin, but they still drink and smoke, and it's like there's a lot of coalescing of things. And what we're proposing now is we give you the option of lots of things that coalesce and give you the ability to change in a way that's powerful against those that adversity you might be experiencing.
Something that's coming up for me as I was listening to Gene, I was watching this gardening video on YouTube once, and it was this little family in Texas, and they wanted to do the whole thing and all that. And they said this quote towards the end of the video. They said, "It's amazing how little we got done in a day, but amazing how much we got done in a year." And
that is
little process.
Great. That is so great. The days are weeks and the weeks are years. Or my sister-in-law has a saying, the days are weeks and the weeks are days, or something like that. Like, no matter what you put in, it gets so big. Yes.
I think really that tortoise and the hare experience, Jared, I think a very common thing of our peers and us too is that if I'm not doing the high leverage things and the most, high value, and I want to outsource my time to things that are beneath me or whatnot, we we end up missing we're doing a lot of activity rather than the things that really make the difference over a year, or over 6 months, or while my kids are teenagers or something like that. And I really love that perspective of, if we focus small here in this way and with us, what you'll get is an outsized impact in your life over a broad period of time.
Yeah. In medical research, when they're doing studies on gluten-free diets, you won't even be included in the study unless you've been gluten-free for 5 years, because that's how long it takes to get it right.
Wow.
There's a learning curve to everything we do. And just recognizing that it's better to take the time that's needed and not add stress to add an artificial timeline on it.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you said your professor took that one slide and made a 1,400-page thing, and you look at it, it looks like chaos. We don't necessarily want to see that view.
Right.
Like, it can be overwhelming. And just kind of a personal story along this line. A few months ago, I started running again for the first time in over a year after injuring my Achilles. So almost a year, a little less than a year. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to learn how to run again. I'm going to be able to play soccer in the yard with my kids again. I'm going to feel the air blowing past my face as I sprint around and jump around. And at the time, my body was saying no, but all I could do was walk and watch my walk. And I'd feel that tinge, that pull, like you said, the thing it needs to do is touch its nose. And I'd walk half mile, my back would lock up, and I'd just have to sit there and stretch for 25 minutes just to walk home. So this is like 3 months ago. Like, there's no way that logically that I'm going to be able to start flowing again. I'd signed up for the Ogden Marathon, which is this coming Saturday, but I'm signed up for the half, not the whole. My original goal was the whole. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull that off. But
still an impossible task. Yeah.
Doing an impossible task. I'm shooting really high, and over the last probably 6 weeks, I was only able to do like 1-2 miles jog. I've been able to add a mile or two every week. And then last Saturday, I did 12 and a half, 13 miles. My watch died, so I think it's the exact number. But 12 and a half, 13 miles in a reasonable time. I could qualify for the Army, like it was under 15-minute miles. It's 12 and a half minute miles, for Christ's sake. But that was only 3 months, but I trained my body one little piece at a time every day. And I started finding, all right, this isn't working. I'm going to add yoga. Yoga loosened up my back. Now I do yoga. This isn't working. Now this is helping, but it's not the whole solution. So I added bike. And I added, this and this and this, just these little pieces. Well, I feel confident I can run a half marathon Saturday. And I'm not stressed about it. I'm not worried about it. So, yeah, interesting, huh?
Good job. Congratulations. That is beautiful.
Thank you. And Chris, you inspire me. You run all the time. And it's just that little piece. Shay, you inspire me. These things we don't really know we're getting from each other. It could be a smile. It could be a little sentiment. They're just little pieces. You just don't know how they're going to fit in someone's life until they just kind of show up. So for me, it's like living in the now is being whole with myself and saying anything is possible. It doesn't mean I can have it today, but I can be working on it for tomorrow. And eventually tomorrow's going to show up. And then all of a sudden you'll look back and say, wow, that was a lot of stuff that actually came together into one beautiful thing.
Right. All things for our good.
Well, Chris, can you think of any questions somebody that's watching this might have? I mean, I'm really excited to share this with people we can, either in clips or in full. And I'm really excited to offer this to, I know people that I've worked with. I can think of lots of people that might be interested and could benefit from meeting up with us and paying to be, in a workshop where we go a little bit more detailed and come away with some takeaways from you can apply in your life. Is there any questions somebody might have that, as you're listening, that we could answer here or do a Q&A?
That's a good question. That's a good question to think of a question. Let me think here. First of all, I love your question, is it a true story or not? I think that there's superpower in that. I'm going to go with, I think a good question for us all to ask is, if we're all talking about impacting each other, and that could be having dinner together, that could be just talking about the things we're grateful for with each other. Um, I think a good question to ask is, since you guys all brought up making small changes, like what is the one small change that you all three would make in your life right now, just one small change that you think would impact you the most? Because I'm a lazy person. So I like to go with like, what is the easiest thing I can do to get the biggest reward? Because I'm a person that did drugs, so I want big rewards for little actions. So what is the small things that people could do right now? And if you want to speak specifically about the topic you were talking on, that's great. If not, just reference your life. But what is a small thing that you all would suggest? Like, I can give up. I see this person one time in their life. I'm going to make the impact like Jared or Shay talked about. What's the one thing that you would tell that person?
So you're asking some of the change that we do right now or have done?
No. Like if I come up to you and I've never met you before, and I'm just getting like, you're going to influence me, right? You're going to impact my life. What is hey man, I suck at this. What is one thing you would give me to take away that the only thing, I'm only going to do one thing. What would it be?
It doubles. It goes on with something you said earlier. I would own the wanting. So in the things you want in life, you have to own that. And where that showed up for me was in my relationship with my spouse. One of the goals I set out a few years ago, or things that I decided like I have to experience this. I'm not going to go to the next phase of whatever life is after this without doing this. And I wanted to be a rock star lover. So I had to figure out like what does that even mean? And the more I followed that inspiration, one of the things that came up is you've got to own the wanting. If you want and I want to be in a committed monogamous relationship over time, as the years roll on, the relationship changes. But the wanting someone and practicing wanting the someone or the thing, that was a game changer for me because as I practiced owning what I want, I felt like I could have what I wanted and I experienced it getting more of what I wanted. So own the wanting is the thing I'd share.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh,
Good one. I like that a lot, man. That's impactful.
Mm-hmm.
that's cool.
Gene, you look like you're ready.
What you wants you back too, right? So that the things you want, it's important. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Shay, that is exactly. There were two things flowing through my head, and one was, "What do you want? Like, what do you want?" That's the question you've got to get down inside of your core, like not. And that's why I think I really resonate with that storytelling and all of that. But I went through an experience many years ago. I went through a pretty major loss that kind of took my why out from underneath me. And I remember hitting what I considered sort of an emotional rock bottom. And I was like, I had nothing to give here. I'm going to smile because I need to smile to feel better. And I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to smile. And I remember walking into a gas station. I'm like, nope, I'm going to smile. And put on a big smile. I'm going to go do my thing. I walked in, and the man behind the counter, as I walked to pay for my thing, I mean, this has been over a decade, and I still remember him. He just said, "Thank you so much for your smile today. I needed that so desperately." And he had a little tear. And I thought, this thing that I needed so desperately, he needed so desperately. So take your need as a superpower, right? Like whatever it is that you're hitting rock bottom about, someone around you needs the same lift. So I'll always remember him because he gave me a why. You know, why keep trying? Why keep going? You know.
Love that. that also
Love
just
that,
shows
Tina.
this such a small thing can be so impactful. And I think it also shows like the things we are sitting there hiding or hurting with that we think we should be ashamed of or hide away or not bring up. Like those are the things to bring up because you're gonna, just as you've all said, like you're gonna impact somebody else because you're breathing. I know you're going through the same thing. You've gone through the same thing, or you will go through something similar. So let's unite forces now on that and help each other grow. I love that. Thank you.
Gene, I love that perspective too. I've seen that in trying to teach people, give that which you don't have, and it will come back to you. And it's a hard concept to really understand until you do it, and then until you have a moment like you described. Giving that piece you don't have really comes back around, and it's not necessarily when you expect it. It's gonna whenever that happens. And this question is tough because I'm always kind of in a state of trying to understand my own awareness, and I come across different cookies of wisdom that really shine in my life, and I hold on to them for a while. So to say if there's that one thing, it's that one thing in that one time of my life. So this week, it's be humble. That's what I'm hearing this week is be humble. Hold the tension a little longer and don't go to that space of pride, that space of anger. When your teenage son is being a total tool and pushing all your hot buttons and he knows how to make you upset, be humble. Hold the tension. It's okay that other people around me can have their own issues and their own ways. And I don't have to put a playbook out there that says you can only interact with me if you do dot, dot, dot. I want to be that place that's safe for people in my life as I'm practicing. And for me to do that is to be humble. And part of being humble is letting go of pride. So if you were to ask me today, I'd say be humble and let go of your pride.
Boom.
It's a good one. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Also.
Shay, you said something today while we were chatting that just follows along with that I loved. That cool is the barrier to creative. Let go of the ego.
Cool kills creativity. Yep.
Yeah, I think that resonates with what Jared ended with there. That's so fabulous.
And creativity is the way. Like if you're feeling creative, you're on the right, that you're in the right direction, that you're hitting, as they say, that you're not sinning, you're hitting the target, you're aiming in the right direction. If you're feeling that feeling,
Yeah.
that you're feeling creative. Well, I'm really excited to share this with people. I feel like any one of us in our individual lives or collectively will find ways to share this or let people know. Or I'm really pleased with the offering here. I'm really excited and thrilled, and I can't wait for our workshop. Jared, do you want to flash up the QR code on this, or do you want to let us know where it's at so we can share it or post it or give it, or do we have that one yet?
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, you got it. So we're looking at inviting families and people that want to make those changes and whatnot. We're looking at $97 for I think we did 2 hours today, so like a 3-hour workshop. I think that's what we're looking at with a few takeaways that they can walk away with, or you can walk away with that you can put into your practice in your life going forward.
I want to say one thing on the creation thing, or on the being creative thing that you and Gene brought up. So I always love the saying, like, imagination is the key to creation. And I think wants are our imagination, right? Like, because we don't necessarily have the things we want, or we wouldn't want them. But if we can't imagine ourselves wanting and having those things, then how do we create a better story or vision? Or even give us creative energy enough to make those changes in eating, right? Because again, that means if we don't have imagination, then we're hopeless. And that's hard for us to create from hopeless. But out of imagination, we can create. And I think it's so extremely important for us all as individuals to see the greatness that we all have inside us. And that's such a key factor, is realizing we can be so much more than we are. And it's just sitting inside of you, waiting for you to imagine it and create it into your own life.
I think a lot of those trauma knots where they get knotted up is around those areas of wanting, having things we want but can't have or don't have, or it's been painful to go after, or we've been shamed because we wanted that, whatnot. I think you're absolutely right, because it's in that willingness to go there that you can imagine and create a new way through or with or to see yourself. It's possible. I can go through the pain or whatever to unwind those and then braid them back together in a way that serves me now in the things I want or imagine or that I want to create.
Yeah, and I want to go back to even what Jared said at the end when he was talking, was like, it's about the journey, right? So I think most of us look at it and go like, oh, I want that, why don't I have it? Or we get, usually negative feelings about not having it, opposed to like understanding the whole journey is actually like, the thing is cool at the end, right? But we all know, just because we've studied dopamine enough, that like you get a hit of dopamine, but the journey gives you these constant drips of dopamine. And Shay, you talk about this a lot, and like that's way more important to me. Like when I run around America, that'll be awesome. Like we'll celebrate that for sure. We'll cry, because I'm a crier, we'll cry, we'll celebrate it. But like the journey to get there is really what makes us become the specimen that people look at and go like, it's amazing. And it's not amazing. It's really simple and easy if you actually understand it and you enjoy the journey part of it. But if you're just always looking to rush to get to the destination, you will always feel displeased with your journey and the destination. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, then, you can have all the dopamine you want, you just can't have it all at once. And if you want to make that deal and get it out over, in a more consistent low drip, it will never run out. But if you go after it all at once, all of a sudden you're in a deficit, and even things you like don't feel good. And it's that positive emotion comes from experiencing the progress towards an aim. So you're going to generate that positive emotion by experiencing the movement or further away, because sometimes that the defeat. The soccer team I coached this last year, we had several games where we were down 2 or 3-0, and we had to come back. And several of those we won, so not all of them, but the ones we win. Now, in the last game, we're going against the state, champion from last year. We were down 2-0, we were down 3-0, and we rallied to come back to score 2 more goals. We didn't get defeated, so we didn't win this one, but we had that inner like experience, like we know how to do this now. So our defeats actually became our strengths in the moment the further we wanted to go into state. And even though we didn't win, no one was hanging their head or punking out or acting like all whiny, like soccer players would want to know, like all these whiny crybabies. They held their heads high, shoulders back, and they finished strong.
That's awesome.
It's a great story, Shay. Go ahead, Gene.
I was listening to a little interview podcast with Dr. Tara, who wrote The Source, about, manifesting, bringing things into your life actively. And I loved her summary point, which was, we want to shift the brain from surviving to thriving. And I think that's what we're really talking about with all of these elements of change, is that we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive in our journey. And all of these tools are here for that purpose.
100% love that.
Yeah, I think we endure the journey when we know that we feel alive in our lives. So even though I'm not there, if I'm willing to understand that it's never done, and it's the creating process where the real juice is at, and as you feel aliveness, it's way easier to stay in the hard and the good than jumping to the end.